Good afternoon. You are listening to Moccasin Tracks. This is Rockin' Ricky Rocket. We're going to be talking to Jayna Ahsaf about the Free Her campaign. The Free Her campaign is a national issue advocacy distributed organizing campaign. The current battleground states are the 6 New England states: Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. These 6 states have the lowest incarceration populations of women in the country. We are working with local formerly incarcerated women leaders and our volunteer base, People Not Prisons, to decarcerate, decriminalize, and close the women's prisons in the states. Here in our state of Vermont, we will end the incarceration of women, girls, trans, and non-binary people in Vermont. We believe prisons are incapable of healing and rehabilitation, and that our community members should never be caged. By shifting funding and resources to ensure communities are housed, fed, and supported, we can interrupt the cycles that lead to both violence and incarceration. Our community members are not safe in the hands of the state, and it is our right to try out solutions designed by and for the community. Instead of continuing to heavily invest into the prison system that has proven itself incapable or of supporting or healing our people. Jayna Ahsaf. The National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls is committed to abolishing incarceration of women and girls. We believe a prison will never be the place for a woman or girl to heal and advance her life. We believe that prison most often causes further social and economic harm, and does not result in an increase in public safety. We believe that the prison experience increases trauma in women and, if they are mothers, to the children they are separated from. We believe that the prison system deepens poverty in the individual lives of incarcerated people and the overall economic stability of their communities. We believe that the current criminal legal system is a failed system and needs to be dismantled. We believe that we have what different looks like and how to get there.
I want to welcome back to Moccasin Tracks, Jayna Ahsaf. Welcome back with the Free Her campaign. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be back with you all.
Yeah, we play, Rick read your bio and a little bit about the campaign earlier, so our listeners would know you were coming on, and we really appreciate you visiting with us. You have had some wonderful, I want to call them actions this summer. And the one that kind of stood out to me was the noise demo. And I love that you did that. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came into being and where you were and why you decided to have a noise demo?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. That's a great question. So, as folks may be familiar from the last show, the Free Her campaign is a New England-based campaign. So I would say our sister campaign is in Massachusetts, and they really are the leaders. And one of the strategies they heavily utilize is placing pressure on subcontractors and folks specifically connected to architectural firms that have helped the prison almost rebrand itself to be more progressive. So, very early on in the campaign, we were engaging with Freeman French Freeman, the place where we had the noise demo, because they created the preliminary designs for the new women's prison. And we were just trying to hold the line that this is not designing community for us. Freeman French Freeman also is designing Burlington's new high school. They designed City Market, along with a lot of other community centers and services. So we wanted to remind them that prison architecture is awful for our communities. It's a very terrible decision, and that there's so many other things you can build. They are not contracted with the DOC anymore. We don't know if that was because of our pressure or if they were just contracted for preliminary designs, but we are hoping that we created a little fear around other architectural firms joining onto this project. And that was kind of just the motivation there, to show people that you're not going to silently be a part of this project and think that we're not going to make you answer, because you're part of our community and we just don't want you to be engaging in these type of projects.
Well, that was really a wonderful action. And I wanted to, in reading your newsletter, ask you about and ask for your comments on, in Alabama, the prison project needed $1.3 billion, and the state used COVID funds. And the organizers presented the banks and pressured the banks to pull out. And that was like a successful action as well. And I love that creative thinking, because it's very nonviolent and it's very creative. And if they're not going to get funded, they can't get built. So it's like a really a wonderful action for your organization. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so our Comrades Communities Not Prisons really led the charge, but we had a lot of National Council organizers helping out. And that was really a very small crew, probably like 24 people were like taking on this behemoth of a prison project. And so, like you said, they would do a lot of research behind the scenes, like go on, maybe I'm telling their tactics, but basically they would find information about people who were on the boards, high-ranking executives that were part of these banks, and really target them and like blow up their phones so they wouldn't be able to make phone calls all day, same with their email inboxes, and really make it so they cannot ignore this project, and that they actually can't even get work done if they're involved. So they successfully, I believe, got 4 banks to back out. And just something a little disturbing is we're seeing prison construction across this country. In 40 states currently, they either have RFPs, what are requests for proposals, or they actually have shovels in the ground with these new prisons. And a lot of them are using COVID relief funds to bankroll these projects. So unfortunately, a lot of other states are getting away with this, but Alabama has been, yeah, one of the main battlegrounds for abolitionists. And I would say we are very much winning down there, which is great because it's the South too.
Yeah. Again, it's like this kind of campaign that's nonviolent, and it's like you're doing so much work behind the scenes to educate yourselves and everyone who's been, part of it. I really admire it, and I want to thank you for that work. You said in your last interview with us that there's a real disconnect between the power players in Vermont and folks who are doing the work. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about, it's been almost a year since we first talked, and where is this project now in the state legislature, and what will we see when we get back to, the legislators having their time in Montpelier. What bills will be active?
Mhm. So, where we are right now, the Department of Corrections and Building and Ground Services has zoned in on two potential sites in Essex for the women's prison. One is off Colchester Road, and I believe the other is River Road. Um, Something just added disaster to this is they are trying to build near wetlands, endangered species, and plants. So this prison isn't just bad for our community members, it's bad for our actual environment. So not to get too distracted about how awful the prison site is, but so now we're going to see things moving a bit quicker since they have potential sites. And last legislative session, they put aside $15 million. They haven't even touched it. They're essentially stockpiling this money to get up to the $70 million amount so they can finish the construction. So yeah, it's just devastating when we have so many crises in our state right now that they're putting money aside for prison construction while we just mass evicted people from hotels. But yeah, so with that being said, we will be pushing the National Council's beautiful prison moratorium bill once again, which, to remind viewers or listeners, that puts a 5-year pause on the prison construction, design, and leasing of new prisons. But it doesn't stop mandatory maintenance or essential repairs, things like that. And as always, we like to present a solution with the problem. So we'll put our alternatives to incarceration working group, which would put together directly impacted people, government folks, and other experts to really come up with a plan on how to move Vermont away from relying on incarceration.
You know, you had told us a little bit about, maybe in the newsletter I was reading, about Pathways Vermont and Jenna's Promise. And of course, we also talked about in Hawaii the way that they're dealing with youth with an indigenous traditions. What really does the Department of Corrections, what do they feel about those alternatives? Can we keep pushing that and educating ourselves on alternatives?
Yeah, so that's where it gets tricky. Their whole argument is that we can have trauma-informed prisons and that there is a more humane way to incarcerate people, which is unfortunately rhetoric we've been having to push back against consistently. And what they're trying to do is they see that these alternatives work. And in order to rebrand incarceration to show that, hey, look, everyone, we still need this, they're trying to conflate care with incarceration. So they'll take like Jenna's Promise, Pathways, Turning Points, all these services, and they're going to embed them in the prisons. And this is problematic for a couple reasons. One, it's almost creating a new status quo where in order to receive services, you need to be incarcerated. These should be things that are available in the community upstream before people get entangled in incarceration. And it's also stockpiling and further putting more dollars into the Department of Corrections. Like they were able to give away like something like $20 million to community-based organizations this year. And to me, that doesn't seem right. That should be money that's given to them out of the general budget. It should not be at the discretion of the Department of Corrections to be deciding what services are worthy of support and expansion. So they do see they're working, but it's my fear that they're trying to co-opt those services as they have with restorative justice, transformative justice, you know. So yeah, slippery slope we're navigating down right now.
And I think again, as for me, the language that is used is sometimes hard for just ordinary people to get a real grasp on. And there was a grant that was given to Vermont for repeat offenders. And I was wondering, and it was like almost $1 million. It was like $900,000 or something. I don't know if you remember that fund or that grant. And I was just wondering if you have an update on that, because that kind of goes along with this. If we're trying to, help people, I don't like to use that word, but when does it happen? Before and even after people do their time and they're back into the community, how can we as a community embrace them and move them forward in their lives, that they're on a healing path? And so all this is like intersecting together in my mind. Can you comment on it a little bit, Jayna?
So I feel like the key to successful reentry is connection and relationship. So we need to find more solutions that are rooted in relationship, in care. A lot of the folks that have been incarcerated long term or are recurring or constantly going in and out of prison, these are folks that have been failed by society many times before, usually dating back to childhood. Like the ACEs, when you think about adverse childhood experiences, a lot of folks that are incarcerated usually have dealt with extremely traumatic situations, like either being victims of domestic or sexual violence or witnessing it, or having parents of their own incarcerated, living in foster care. So these folks have experienced extreme levels of violence and isolation very early in their lives. And I feel by interrupting those with love and connection, that will bring us to a much better place. Like a lot of the options we have right now are coercive or mandatory. Like you have to, go to a hospital if you're having a mental health crisis and then you can't leave. Or if you're using, sometimes you end up in prison because you're committing crimes to keep up with your substance use. It's just we don't have a lot of holistic options that meet people where they're at, that, acknowledge that healing isn't linear and that everyone's healing journey looks different. We have a lot of one size fits all options. And I think, just broadening what's available is really key in those relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for saying that. And I really appreciate how you intersect with so many other issues. And, I just want you to be able to express what is really important for you in now, and where you feel that Free Her campaign is moving towards, and any of those like news things like that we can look forward to as a community person participating in and learning about too.
Of course, thank you. So right away, I'm thinking about a week of abolition we have coming up that we can plug people into. It'll be from October 23rd to October 30th, and we'll have a great mix of events. And it extends past the week of abolition. Later in November, we'll be having an expungement clinic with the National Lawyers Guild. But just to preview some of the events we'll have, we're going to be doing a FOIA request training, so people can have more information about how you can request information from the government for your own campaigns or to help our abolitionist movement here. We're also going to be having virtual teach-ins. We're going to be having this beautiful event with the Education Justice Coalition down in Barrie called Joy Not Jails, and it'll be like creating songs and chants and creating a banner together. So we have a mix of like teaching people how to advocate for themselves and having fun and just enjoying each other, and also learning, because those are all such key pieces of movement that I sometimes feel like we get distracted by, because we're always like action, movement, we got to move forward. But sometimes moving forward is just being in right relationship with each other, learning those foundational pieces. So follow us on Instagram at FreeHerVT if you want to keep up to date. And also our website is nationalcouncil.us/Vermont if you want to sign up on our listserv so you'll get emails about these events coming up. But yeah, that's something really exciting we have. Oh, and October 19th, the Vermont Coalition for Palestinian Liberation is having a conference in Burlington, and we'll be doing a workshop there. So if folks want to learn more about how all these liberation movements are interconnected, that's a good place to find us too.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're, getting more support in the state of Vermont or New Hampshire?
Yes, definitely. Our listserv, we're over 2,000 people now. So we've grown by, I think, so we have a tech person that obviously does our analytics, and it looks like we grew 94% from last September.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, yeah, it feels like Freedom's just like catching fire. And, that's one of the things I love about Vermont is I feel we've always been a progressive state where people understand and respect each other's humanity. So I feel prison abolition isn't like a complex ideology to grasp. Like it makes sense to people that we should be caring for people that are making mistakes instead of continuing to punish them and seeing the same outcomes. So I will say Vermont is an easier state to organize in, which has been nice. And I just feel like we've successfully created a counter narrative. Like now, legislators in their communications, even in news stories, you see them acknowledging the abolitionist point of view, that this is actually an actual argument on the table. We have legitimacy now. People have to acknowledge us. They have to put out op-eds rebuttaling our ideas. So it's like, to me, that feels like we're winning in a way. Even if we haven't stopped the prison, it feels like a win.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the Moratorium Bill, it's still alive, and it's very hopeful that we could take a break and then educate ourselves more, take the time for that. That would be wonderful. Rick, do you have any questions for Jayna?
I have lots of thoughts. I mean, this is an amazing issue. And of course, I'm a male, so, but it just seems that it's just common sense to get women on with their lives. They give children, the children suffer. It just seems more humane.
Mm-hmm. And that's a key part of women's incarceration is this aspect of children and families. I believe the percentage is 80% of women incarcerated in Vermont have minor children.
Oh, wow.
So when you're just thinking about the federal law, I believe it's if you don't spend 18 out of 22 months with your children, your rights are automatically terminated. So just thinking like, how many families are destroyed by mothers and parents becoming incarcerated, and how we don't really have supports for those children. They have to go to school. They can't really talk about it because it's so heavily stigmatized, and they really are hidden victims of specifically women's incarceration. But obviously, like men and parents in men's prisons, they're separated, but they have usually statistics show women are more apt to bring children for visitations and things like that. So it's harder to maintain those relationships in prison for women, unfortunately.
Yeah. I wanted to just touch on the detention center for youth, and some thoughts off the top of your head about that situation.
Yeah, I'm just once again in shock that we would be contemplating a detention facility for children when Vermont's history of incarcerating children is very dark. And I don't think Vermont's proven that we've made any kind of progress or that we can even fulfill promises that we can care for these children safely. So yeah, once again, it just feels like a giant step in the wrong direction. And just thinking about the legacy of the Weeks school there and just how much eugenics has tied into who we think we should incarcerate, especially with youth. I'm disappointed in Vermont that we don't see that we're continuing racial systems of oppression with these detention centers, these prisons. They're just tools of control that target very specific populations. And we just have so many better options available to us. I feel like we're so creative as Vermonters, and it's disappointing that we're not looking at this outside the box on how to care for youth in our community.
I don't have it at my fingertips right at this moment, but the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Vermont has put out a pretty strong statement. When you go to look for it, it's a little hard to find. It's not out front and center. I'm going to try to bring that on our social media, because I feel like that is a government commission that at least is giving the history of and includes the eugenics. That was the strongest statement that I've seen as far as, some of you, besides, of course, Free Her campaign. But, hopefully people can see that within the government itself, there's questions and there's like a little bit of pushback. But I don't know how far it'll go. But it was really encouraging. Maybe we should read it on the radio sometime. I'll bring it up for you, Rick. Just kind of like do that. We have this airtime, and, I feel very strong sometimes about bringing these community issues forward. And that's one way to do it. It's not like just us feeling a certain way. It is organizations, and in this case, a Vermont government organization putting out a statement.
Yeah, that statement was incredibly powerful. I learned so much from that, and it informed our organizing around for Jen. So definitely, I think the more people that know, the better.
Yeah. And they're really peeling back like an onion, like peeling back the layers of eugenics and bringing forward people's voices and different groups. And it's ongoing. It doesn't happen overnight. They have, I think, something coming up in October in a couple of weeks at the State House, where individuals will be able to voice their experiences. So that's really important.
Actually, you're reminding me, I think it's October 11th. One of our organizers, Tiffany Harrington, she was on with me last time.
Yes, Tiffany.
Yeah, she'll be speaking at that event.
Oh, great. How's Tiffany doing?
She's doing all right.
Yeah.
World is hard, and especially when you have a record, like it just, people think you serve your time and it's over, but it's a weight on you the rest of your life, and it just creates so many challenges and barriers. So
yeah. Oh man, I would like to visit with her in person, and you're inspiring me to go to the rally and bring my little recorder so I can, catch up with her. I want to thank you for the work that you do, Jayna. You're so articulate, and you make us feel very comfortable in asking questions and, trying to inform our listeners about this issue. We have some great events coming in October, so we'll make announcements about them as we get closer to the dates. And, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners today that we haven't brought up?
I'm also realizing this Sunday, if there's any Central Vermonters out there, we'll be having a community gathering and strategizing meeting at Full Capitol from 3 to 5 p.m. So if you're looking for a way to get engaged, especially right there in your community, you can come out to that meeting, and it should be a special time.
Okay, again, that's this Sunday?
Yeah.
October 6th at the State House?
Full Capitol. It's a restaurant, actually, like two spots down. It's like right next to the library.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. 3 to 5 this coming Sunday.
Yes.
You can check it out in Montpelier. Thanks for announcing that. I just, I really hope that we can decrease the population of incarcerated women and children and youth and girls in Vermont and in New Hampshire jails. And thank you for your statements and your words today, Jayna. In closing comment?
No, just that there's a place for everyone in this movement. If you think there's not, please reach out. We utilize any type of skill and we would love to have you. And it's just a great place to learn about how much power we hold as a community. So we just encourage anyone to reach out if they want to learn more or get connected.
Okay. Thank you so much for visiting us with us again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll have you back again soon.
That sounds good. Thanks, Deb. Bye.
All right. Bye now.